Hey guys, welcome back to another upSchool video. Today we're going to be solving questions 1 and 2 of exercise 1.1 of RD Sharma Class 7 Math Chapter 1 Integers, alright? So, hope you guys enjoy this video, and without any further ado, let's begin. So let's just have a quick introduction. So yes, these are the two problems in exercise 1.1 of RD Sharma Class 7 Math Chapter 1, exercise 1.1, which we're going to be solving. My goal is to give you guys the solutions and explanation to these problems. So yes, the key concepts, there are a couple of concepts that will help you actually solve the questions in exercise 1.1. And those fundamental concepts are understanding integers, understanding multiplication of integers, and last but not least, understanding the properties of multiplication, alright? So my goal is to just teach you guys all these concepts. And if you learn all these concepts, then it'll help you answer the RD Sharma exercise 1.1 questions in a cinch, okay? So, you can skip to the part where we actually solve the videos. So, understanding integers, that's the first fundamental concept we'll learn that will help us solve the problem. So, what are integers? Okay, our chapter is called integers, but what are they? Integers are a type of number. The definition, any whole or negative number is an integer, okay? So any whole number or a negative number that you find, it will be considered as an integer, alright? So another definition is an integer is a number that does not consist of a fractional value. So any number that you find that does not consist of a fractional value can be known as an integer, okay? So the entire collection of all the whole and negative numbers that do not consist of a fractional value, they are known as integers, and they can be represented on a number line. So yes, now we'll look into the examples of integers and examples of non-integers. When I mean non-integers, I mean integers that non-integers are numbers that aren't integers, alright? So examples of integers, -9, 13, -64, okay? These three numbers, they're either a whole number or a negative number, and they do not consist of a fractional value. So what does that mean? It means it's an integer. For example, -9. -9 is a negative number, and as we see over here, an integer is any whole or negative number. A -9 is a negative number, so it is an integer. And another definition is a number that does not consist of a fractional value. -9 does not consist of a fractional value. So yes, it is an integer. So non-integers. Non-integers are numbers that aren't integers, that cannot be classified as integers. Examples would be 9.5, 1 1/2, and 4.1, okay? These numbers, they consist of a fractional value, 9.5. 0.5 is a fractional value. 1 1/2, it consists of a fractional value. 4.1 also consists of a fractional value, okay? So, types of integers. Well, there are actually three major types of integers: positive integers, negative integers, and 0. Okay, I'll be explaining why 0 is its own type of integers. Okay, so positive integers. Examples can be 9, 13, 67. Okay, it's basically an integer that has a positive value. Alright, so negative integers can be -9, -654, and -8. Examples of, okay, so the last type is 0. Okay, 0 is its own type because, as we probably know, 0 is a number that is neither positive and neither negative. So it's just classified in its own type, 0, and yet 0. So hope that made sense. So yes, there are three types of integers: positive integers, negative integers, and 0 integers. 0, simply 0. So now let's try to understand the multiplication of integers. All right. So a couple of rules. So when you're multiplying two integers, there are a couple of rules that you should follow, okay? So anytime you're multiplying a negative number times a positive number, the answer will always be negative, and vice versa. What that means is a negative number times a positive number, or a positive number times a negative number, the answer will always be negative. Another rule is that a negative number times a negative number always equals positive, okay? So let's say we're multiplying two negative integers. The answer is going to be a positive integer. So positive integer times positive integer is going to be a positive integer as the product. So now let's look into them. negative integer times positive integer is equal to negative integer. Let's see if that's true with the help of an example. Let's say we're doing negative 9, a negative integer, times 8, a positive integer. The answer, okay, since we're multiplying a negative number times a positive integer, we know the answer is going to be negative, okay? So now let's just do negative 9 times 8 without worrying about the signs. 9 times 8 is 72, right? It's 72. And as we learn, a negative integer times a positive integer is negative. So yes, the answer is negative 72, okay? Hope that made sense. So now try to see if a negative integer times a negative integer is equal to a positive integer, alright? So let's multiply two negative integers. Negative 8 times negative 9 times negative 8, okay? So as we know, a negative integer times a negative integer is equal to a positive integer. So we see here that we have our negative integer of negative 9 and our other negative integer of negative 8. So as we learned, a negative integer times a negative integer is going to be positive. So our answer is going to be a positive integer. So now let's do 9 times 8, that's 72. So our answer is going to be positive 72. Hope that made sense. So next, a positive integer times a positive integer is equal to a positive integer. Let's say we're doing 9 times 8. The answer is 72, okay? The positive integer 9 times the positive integer 8 is going to be a positive integer as the product, which is 72. So hope that made sense. Comment down below if you have any questions. So now let's try to understand the properties of multiplication. So what are the properties of multiplication of integers? Basically, what are the different, well, yes. When I mean properties, when you're multiplying integers, there are many properties, and that includes the closure property of multiplication, the commutative property of multiplication, associative property of multiplication, distributive property of multiplication over addition of additions, zero property of multiplication, and the identity property of multiplication. So, closure property. The property in which all integers are closed under a multiplication. So what I mean is, every time you multiply two integers, the answer is always going to be integer. In other words, all integers are closed under multiplication. The commutative property. The property in which whatever order you multiply integers, the answer is the same. Okay, so what that means is, when you're multiplying two integers, like a times b, if you swap the order to b times a, the answer is going to be the same thing. Okay, so let's say we're doing 5 times a. Okay, 5 and 8 are two integers. Let's switch up the order. Let's change it from 5 times 8 to 8 times 5. Whatever order you switch it to, the answer is going to be 40. So yes, that's the commutative property of multiplication of integers. So now let's look into the associative property. The property in which if you change the grouping of numbers, the product will be the same. Okay, when I mean grouping, I mean, the grouping is where the parentheses are. If you change where the parentheses are of the numbers, the answer is going to be the same. So what I mean is, a times b, if they're in parentheses, if they're grouped together, okay, a times b times c. So if you do a times b first, and you multiply that product times c, that equals to doing a times b plus c. So a times b in parentheses times c is the same thing as doing a plus a times in parentheses b times c. I made a typo over here. The answer, it's actually supposed to be a times symbol. So let's look into this with the help of an example. So 5 times 9 grouped together in parentheses times 9. Okay, so as we know, we do whatever is in the parentheses first. So we do 5 times 6 first. 5 times 6 is equal to 30. So 30 times 9 is 270. Alright, so now let's change the grouping to 5 times 6 times 9. Okay, now our grouping is with 6 and 9. Okay, we're changing the grouping, which means now we do 6 times 9 first, which is 54. 54 times 5 is 270. This is the type of the answer is supposed to be 270. Alright, so hopefully that made sense. The property in which if you change the grouping of numbers, the answer or the product will still be the same. The distributive property. The distributive property of multiplication over addition of integers. So what it means is that it's the property in which multiplication of integers can be distributive over addition. So a times b plus c is the same thing as a times b plus a times c. Okay, so if you distribute if you distribute the multiplication of integers into like addition, if you distribute them, the answer is going to be the same. Okay, let's say we're doing 5 times in parentheses 2 plus 1. Okay, so 2 plus 1 is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 1 is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So now let's change. Now let's distribute. Now let's distribute them. So 5 times in parentheses 2 plus 2 is equal to 5 times 2 plus 5 times 1, and 5 times 2 is 10 plus, if we're doing order of operations, plus 5 times 1 is 5. 10 plus 5 is equal to 15. So we're basically distributing these numbers, and we still got the same answer of 15. Hopefully that made sense. So, okay, now let's look into the identity property. The property in which an integer multiplied by 1 gives the same identity. So let's say you have the integer 5. If you multiply 5 by 1, the answer is going to be 5. So the answer is going to give the same identity of 5. Alright? So the last property is the 0 property. The property in which an integer times 0 will always equal 0. Okay, let's say we're doing negative 8. Negative 8 times 0 is going to equal 0. And whatever integer, if we multiply that integer by 0, it's going to equal 0. So yes, hopefully that made sense. These are all the properties of multiplication. So now let's actually solve questions 1 and 2 in exercise 1.1 of RD Sharma Class 7 Math Chapter 1. Okay. So yes, first let's solve question number 1. Determine the following product. Okay. So as we know, a product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So 12 times 7. Let's try to solve it. So, okay. We have a positive integer of 12, and we're multiplying it by another positive integer of 7. Okay, so this is basic arithmetic, and it's actually pretty easy to solve. Okay, so we simply just normally solve 12 times 7. Alright, since we're just multiplying two positive integers. Okay, and as we learned, a positive integer times a positive integer is equal to a positive integer. So we know the answer is going to be positive no matter what, but to actually find this number over here, we have to do 12 times 7. So 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So 12 times 7 is 84. So our answer is positive 84. Positive 84, or simply just 84. So hope you guys understood. So yes, the answer to the first one, the first sub-question, is 84. Now let's look into the second one, negative 15 times 8. So we're multiplying a negative integer by a positive integer, alright? And remember, anytime you're multiplying a negative integer by a positive integer of positive 8, a negative integer times a positive integer is equal to a negative integer, okay? And vice versa. So what that means is even a positive integer times a negative integer will also equal a negative integer. So we know the answer is going to be negative no matter what. Now to actually find this number, we have to do 15 times 8 just without worrying about the negative signs or anything. So 15 times 8. Let's try to solve it. 15 times 8. 8 times 5 is 40, so we carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So our answer is 120. So 120 goes over here. So our answer is negative 120, alright? So yes, since a negative integer times a positive integer is equal to negative, we know the answer is going to be negative, and we did 15 times 8, which is 120. So yes, the answer is negative 120. Hope you understood. So yes, now let's look into the third sub-question, negative 25 times negative 9, alright? So we're multiplying a negative integer by a negative integer, and as we learned, any negative integer by a negative integer, the answer is going to be positive. So yes, we know the answer is going to be positive no matter what. So now let's just do 25 times 9 to just find the number over here. So 25 times 9. Alright, so 9 times 5 is 45. So 5, we carry the 4. 9 times 2 is 18. Plus 4 is 22. So our answer is 222. So yes, our answer is going to be positive 225. Positive 225, or simply just 225. So our answer is positive 225. Now let's move on to the fourth sub-question. So the fourth sub-question is positive. So as we learned, any positive integer that's multiplied by a negative integer, the answer is going to be negative, alright? Any positive integer multiplied by a negative integer, the answer is going to be negative. So now let's just do 125 times negative 8 times 8 without worrying about the signs, so we can just get our answer. Okay? So 125 times 8. Let's try to solve this. So 8 times 5 is 40. So let's carry the 4. So 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. So 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So our answer is 1000. So our actual answer is negative 1000. So yes, our answer is negative 1000. So we finished question number 1, and now let's move on to question number 2. Find each of the following products. This is basically like question number 1, although instead of multiplying 2 integers, we're multiplying 3 integers. But that's not difficult, as we know the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Let's do the first sub-question. 3 times negative 8 times 5. Alright? So, let's move on. So one way you can easily solve this sub-question is we can sort of divide it into chunks, alright? So first let's just do 3 times negative 8, and we'll multiply the answer to this, whatever it is, let's just say y, times 5, okay? So that's how we're going to solve it to just make it easier. Okay, so first let's do 3 times negative 8, okay? 3 times negative 8. This is a multiplication sign, not an x. 3 times negative 8, okay? So we're basically multiplying a positive integer by a negative integer. So as we know, any positive integer multiplied by a negative integer, the answer is going to be negative. So now let's do 3 times 8 without worrying about the signs. 3 times 8 is 24. Alright, 24. And since we're doing negative, it's negative 24. So our plan was to do the answer to this times 5. So now let's do negative 24 times 5, alright? So we're basically multiplying a negative integer by a positive integer, and as we know, a negative integer by a positive integer, the answer is going to be negative, alright? So our answer is going to be negative. So now let's do 24 times 5. So 24 times 5. We're not worrying about the signs, but we're just multiplying. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So the answer is 120. So our actual answer is negative 120. So yes, that's our answer. Negative 120. So yes. Now let's move on to the second sub-question. 9 times negative 3 times negative 6. So So let's break it up into chunks. First, let's do 9 times negative 3, and I'll multiply the answer to this times negative 6, okay? So 9 times negative 3. 9 times negative 3. So we're basically multiplying a positive integer by a negative integer. And as we learned, any positive integer multiplied by a negative integer, the answer is going to be negative. 9 times 3, without worrying about the signs, is 27. So the answer to our chunk that we broke up is negative 27. Now let's do negative 27 times negative 6. Okay, we're multiplying a negative integer by a negative integer, and as we learned, a negative integer by a negative integer, the answer is going to be positive. So our answer is going to be a positive integer. So now let's do 27 times 6 without worrying about the signs. So 27 times 6. 6 times 7 is 42. Carry the 4. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 4 is 16. Our answer is 162. So it's actually positive 162. So yes, that is the solution. Hope you understood. So now let's move on to the last sub-question, okay? So negative 2 times 36 times negative 5, okay? So first let's do this chunk, negative 2 times 36, and we'll multiply whatever this product is by negative 5, okay? So negative 2 times 36, okay? We're basically multiplying a negative integer by a positive integer, and as we learned, a negative integer by a positive integer, the answer is going to be negative. Okay, so we know whatever the answer to this is, it's going to be negative. Let's do 2 times 36, or 36 times 2, either one. So that equals 2. 2 times 6 is 12, carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 72. The answer is negative 72 of this chunk. Okay, so now let's do negative 72 times negative 5. Alright? So we're basically multiplying a negative integer by a negative integer, which, as we know, is equal to a positive integer. The answer is going to be a positive integer, whatever it is. So positive. Now let's do 72 times 5. Alright, I'll multiply them. So 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 1 is 36. So our answer is 360. It's actually positive 360. So yes, our answer is 360. Hope you understood. So yes, we have our answer of 360. So just note down all the solutions, and that's about it, guys. We just solved the first 2 questions of RD Sharma Class 7 Math Chapter 1 Integers Exercise 1.1. Hope you guys enjoy, and stay tuned for more upSchool videos. You can watch our previous videos in upSchool. We'll be explaining NCERT solutions and tutorials, RD Sharma solutions, coding, and much more. Alright, so yes, don't forget to subscribe to upSchool, hit that notifications button, and like, share, and comment to all our videos. This is upSchool signing off. Greatness starts here.